In Africa, we love stories, we love storytelling. So I bring a short story to you to demonstrate what we mean by solidarity. Your neighbor's problem is your problem. This is a short story about the mice and the stone trap. So there was once a farm, and on this farm there was a stone trap which was set in order to trap these mice. So the mice was lucky because it saw the stone trap which was meant to trap it and kill it. And immediately the mice went to the chicken and said to the chicken, "Chicken, there is a danger looming. There is a stone trap that has been set to trap, quash and kill me. Please come and help me by tripping this stone trap." The chicken then said, "It's none of my problem, because the stone trap is not for chickens. The stone trap is for mice, small animals that run on the ground. After all, chickens can fly here and there." The chicken was very disappointed and went to the goat and said, "Goat, on this farm there is a danger. A stone has been set to trap me and kill me. Please come and kick this stone so that the danger is alleviated." The goat refused. The mice were so disappointed and went to the cow and said, "Cow, there is a danger on this farm. Please help me. Can you trip this stone so that the danger to me will be removed?" The cow refused. In the meantime, when the stone tripped, it trapped a snake. And when the farmer's wife was cleaning the yard, she lifted that stone, she was bitten by the snake, and she died. Then the farmer said, "Kill the chicken. I must feed the people here." And the chicken was killed. More people came to the funeral, and the farmer said, "Kill the goat." The goat was killed in order to feed the mourners. Still more mourners came to the funeral, and the farmer said, "Kill the cow." And the cow was killed. The mice is the only animal that survived on the farm. So we may look at Kashmir as something that is very far away from us, as something that is not our problem. But our responsibility as those that sympathize and speak and act in solidarity with the people in Kashmir and illegally occupied Jammu, what is our responsibility? Your Excellency, we have 5 responsibilities. If you agree with me that the meaning of the word solidarity is driven from a French word which means unity or to unite, as those that claim or purport to be in solidarity with the oppressed, we have 5 responsibilities. Our first responsibility is to be in unity with them. That is what the word solidarity means. It means we have to be in unity with them. But to be in unity with them means something else practically. We have to leave our existential comforts here in Pretoria and enter into their spaces and feel their feelings and speak from their positionality, not from our air-conditioned buildings. 2 minutes, then we forget about them. Our second responsibility is that of willingness. We must be willing to sacrifice. Number 3, we have got a responsibility to these people. We have a responsibility to humanity to see that justice is finally established, no matter how long it will take. Number 4, Your Excellency, we are accountable to those people. We are accountable to the oppressed people. Because at times when you are immersed in a problem, you cannot even see what is a kilometer away from you. We are privileged because we are far away from this theater called Kashmiri. We can see what is happening there, and therefore we have got a responsibility to be accountable to those people. They should hold us account about what we are doing about their misery. And finally, Your Excellency, our responsibility is to keep the vision. A vision that those people, one day, it can take 2 minutes, 2 years, 20 years, but that vision must be kept by us as the custodians as they fight on the grounds on a day-to-day visit. We have got a huge responsibility to the oppressed. We need to keep both the oppressed and the oppressors in our radar because it takes two to tango. Thank you very much.
As Professor, what he's saying, I'm totally agree with him. In fact, the issue of Kashmir is not only matter of any religion or any tribe. In fact, it's a matter of 10 million human beings. And from last 74 years, the way they are suffering in brutality of India, and I'm sure that mostly the representatives sitting here, they are aware of the situation of Kashmir. More than 10,000 women been raped. And if you see the figure of the innocent children, they was injured by pilot guns. And any human beings, any human being who have heart, he will cry when he listen the situation of Kashmir. We, as a Pakistani, we have some, our stance on this situation that the problem of Kashmir should be solved on resolutions of UNO. And it's very, strange thing that India was the first who took this issue of Kashmir to the UNO. And in last 74 years, even he took himself this issue of Kashmir to a UNO, but till now, they are not following that old resolutions of UNO that they should take away their army which illegally occupied Kashmir. So they have to take out their army out from the Kashmir. So the people of Kashmir, they can make decision for their self-determination, and they can make a decision for their future, for their children's future. I really appreciate all the good people sitting here. In fact, the solidarity which they're showing, today they come here. We as Pakistani from my platform, Pakistan Social Association, I really appreciate you people. You join us, and I hope that in South Africa, we will work for Kashmir for their the struggle, the freedom, the fight they fighting for freedom. It will be more powerful, and the voice of Kashmiri in South Africa will be more strong.
Situations like this call for international solidarity, and I am here today in solidarity to the people of Pakistan and then Kashmir and Jammu, to lend my voice, especially as relating to the deliberate acts to dehumanize the people in order to deprive them of the right to self-determination. I believe that identity, as a person, identity is at the core of whatever we do, because when you know who you are, it expresses in other forms of your life. So the most gross human violation that can happen to someone is to rob them of an identity so that there is no place for them to identify with and then discover their humanity. So in robbing of identity, you're dehumanizing and taking away the ability for someone to also enjoy their humanity and be as a human being and get the rights that they are endowed with by virtue of being human. And so I may not really have much to say, but this has really been on for so long, even before I was born. But I'm really hoping that issues like this can really be laid to rest, and especially insecurity, and people would be given the opportunity to determine for themselves the identities that they deem fit to carve for themselves. So thank you very much for inviting me, and yeah.
If you look at the history of all movements for freedom or justice throughout human history, they are driven by young people. They are driven by people on the ground. So I'm slightly disappointed that I see very few young people here today. I do respect everyone who's here, but I thought that perhaps to be able to put the issue of Kashmir in the consciousness of every citizen of the world, perhaps we should look at going beyond this room. And South Africa has got a very active civil society movement. Those people should have been here. The trade unions should have been here. The churches should have been here, because the Kashmiri issue is not a religious issue. It is a human rights issue. Therefore, the mobilization for solidarity should go as wide as possible. So I'm hoping that from 2023, from the 2023 International Kashmir Solidarity Day, we will have an event bigger than this, beyond these walls, which has a broad or a broader audience.
Your Excellency, we have already expressed our words of solidarity and called for the respect of the line of control, and also for the right of the Kashmiri people's self-determination. This is a call that comes from everywhere, not just from us. We must also express again our call to the end of this violence and abuse, because if we do not reiterate these things over and over, people tend to forget. We also have to, in particular, when we talk about the call to the end of violence, mention the atrocities and violence, especially by the Indian Armed Forces. We cannot talk about Kashmir without particularly mentioning this. Because if we don't, then people think that the violence is either coming from inside or from somewhere else. And that is not the reality. We also reiterate our call to the United Nations, and we've heard this just now in the video clips that we listened to from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Pakistan, Islamic Republic of Pakistan, to call upon the United Nations so that there is a settlement reached that is both lasting and that is enforceable. That is important, those two aspects of lasting and enforceable. With this, Your Excellency and dignitaries present, I bring to you the greetings of my provincial leadership. I spoke to them on my way here as well, so I bring you their warm greetings. Our commitment is to continue this call in volume over time. So we cannot speak of freedom if we do not do it in volume and over time. And that was the message that was given by the MYM just now. We need to be shouting this from the rooftops. Your Excellency, while I have visited Azad Kashmir, and I have not had the opportunity to visit the other side, I continue in my prayer to call for the freedom of all of the people of Kashmir. And that freedom, Your Excellency, must be on their terms, not on the terms of anybody else. And I think that is the important message for me to take away from here and to continue to echo.
And it is heartwarming to see the heterogeneity of the presence from all walk of life, from academia to the activist. Some of my comrades, I heard there is a professor from UJ. Since I'm a UJ, one of the scholar, I've been under the hammer of Susie Graham and Chris Landberg. So, okay, I can spot you here because I came late. Now, the professor was referring to the African way of solidarity, and what I understood so far is our South African way of expressing The solidarity or African way is Ubentism. You know, you all have to be the Ubentum. You know, you need to be together. I am because of we are, and that is what it is. So I look at it that Professor elaborated the 5 pillars of solidarity, and I think for me, in a broad sense, I narrow down to 3. As a human being, we owe to the people of Kashmir because we were born without a religion. We were born as a human being. So we owe to the people of Kashmir on the basis of as a human being. Then, whether you become a Christian, the baptism happen, or whether you become a Muslim after the azan given, then you, as a religious person, you're still responsible. You have a responsibility toward the people of Kashmir. Then, of course, you go to the home affairs, you get your South African citizen, some Pakistani, Zimbabwe, whatever the case is, then you become the citizen of the world, and you still have the responsibility as a citizen of the world to that. Kashmir is not a small entity or a small thing. It is almost 86,000 kilometer radius, 3 times the size of Belgium, 2 times the size of United Kingdom, 14 million inhabitants. One of the longest debate took place in the United Nations was on Kashmir. It is the longest unresolved matter on the United Nations Security Council resolution. It is Kashmir. And if you look at the foundation of United Nations for the human right, the UDHR, which is the Universal Declaration of the Human Right, and ISPR, which is the International Convention on the Political and the Human Rights and Economical Right. There are 31 articles in the UDHR, and there's 53 articles it is in the ISPR. Every single article has been trampled upon in Kashmir. The right to live, the right to breathe, the right to express, the right to association, the right for a self-expression, the right for religious freedom, the right for a movement. Every single, if my brother and sister, I like to tell you that the Kashmir is being under Indian oppression or curfew or a brute martial law for the last 75 years. The life doesn't exist. And it has become more worse. In the prelude to revoking of article on the 5th of August 2019, it's become a double lockdown. It was already, there was no freedom of movement, there was no freedom of expression, there was no freedom of association. It became more brutal that license to kill was given to the Indian Armed Forces, sight and shoot to kill. Even the mothers, I'm so sad to tell you that even the mothers couldn't buy, until today, the baby formula. The kids die in the malnutritioning into the houses. When the elder didn't have the chronic medicine, they died in the houses because it was a strict, brute martial law and a curfew 24 hours a day, which until today persists. And our media doesn't know about it. World media doesn't know about it. United Nations just do the lot of lip service. The elders and the kids and the family member, those are killed or those was murdered under the judicial killing, I would call it, in the Indian curfew and oppression. They were buried into the houses. They were buried into the back garden of the houses. Can you find more brute oppression anywhere in the world? Yet again, the whole world, unfortunately, it's all about the political economy, the new liberalism, and that underpinned by the political economy. Yes, India could be the bigger market, and I wish them to glorify, I wish them to continue to grow, but not at the blood of a Kashmiri brother and sister. We owe, as a South African citizen, we owe because we are on the land of a champion of Nelson Mandela. This is the land of human rights. Ahmed Kathrada, Sol Plaji, I can give you the list of the people. And I think I'm very privileged, I'm very honored to tell you that this land has given me opportunity as a Kashmiri to open a historical case of a war crime against the Modi in 2017, which no other country have done it. So I think I'm thank you to this land, I'm thank you to this constitute, and I'm thank you to all the people are here. Please do not stop your support. Continue to dig in deep and find more. Yes, the last seven decades, 75 years has been gone into the struggle. Now we have transited from the struggle into the international, true global movement. And thank you very much to my ambassador, His Excellency, his entourage, and to the rest of the officer, diplomatic corps here, that you have brought such a heterogeneity into the group today. Those will be listening, and you will be the best to tell this message to the people. And I don't think so that the liberation of Kashmir is going to come from Europe or America or anybody else. It's going to come from South Africa. Amen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Good evening, Your Excellency, the Ambassador, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to you all. I would want to start on a slightly different note. By the end of the Second World War, an international liberal order was established. And that liberal order was established in such a way that rules are being put in place on how nations relate amongst themselves. And these rules are guided by the rules of pluralism, respect for human rights, and respect for whatever religion you want to practice. We cannot say for sure if these rules really apply to the relation between India and the people of Jammu and Kashmir. India prides itself as one of the biggest federal democracies surviving in the world today, thanks to that. But how much more India respects the rule of international order in its relation with the people of Jammu and Kashmir stands to be under scrutiny. The revocation of Article 370 and by extension 35 raised a lot of problem, tension in Jammu and Kashmir. The statehood of that territory was cancelled. By implication, it is now a union territory. And how free the people of Jammu and Kashmir are is something that we should really be concerned. Prof talked about the issue of positionality, being with Kashmiri to understand how they feel. And I can say with all sense of respect that I think by the opportunity I had given to me by the High Commission here, I have related with Kashmiris and I know what it feels like for your rights to be stripped. There are times I wake up, that opportunity I had, I still communicate with Kashmiris to ask how they are feeling. Then I understand that I'm a free human being with full rights, but they are not free people. Your Excellency Ambassador, in the last webinar we had, the senator from Australia mentioned something I think we should take seriously, and that brings me to what you talked about, Professor, accountability. We need a sustained global solidarity. We need a sustained global solidarity in order to ensure that the people of Kashmir are free and human beings like ourselves. You rightly mentioned that when you punch the internet, what you find is a narrative put forward by India. This solidarity should be such that when you punch the social media, the feelings of Kashmiri should be what people should read. The international media doesn't cover the situation as it should be. We don't really get to see the story of the Kashmiri people on the social media, and the social media has become one of the powerful tools of social mobilization in modern era. So, Your Excellency, I think the international declamation contest that was organized, and I'm happy to say that it was young people like myself that participated. I was amazed to see the outpouring of love by young people like myself who were not Kashmiris but really felt the situation of Kashmiris. And I think, Your Excellency, such solidarity should be sustained in order to bring the situation of Kashmiri to the doorstep of every peace-loving people. How the Vietnamese War ended in America was because the Americans were able to play the war to Americans to see what was happening in Vietnam. We need also to play what is happening in Kashmiri to the peace-loving people around the world to see what is happening, so that the United Nations should live up to its responsibility. There have been resolutions that have been passed, but India has not lived up to respecting those resolutions. How can Kashmiris live as free people is what we should be thinking about. that global solidarity should be beefed up to the social media, Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, so that people should see and then call on the UN to live up to its responsibility in order for Kashmiris to live as free people as we do. Enough of sitting in the AC, enough of sitting in the UN Resolution Assembly and doing nothing. Kashmiris are people who should live free life just like we are. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Excellency, distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Kashmir issue is not only a major obstacle impeding relations between Pakistan and India, but also a source of concern because of its humanitarian aspect as well as its implications in the wider region. Indian government's unilateral and arbitrary decision to abrogate the special status of Jammu Kashmir in 2019 only complicated the long-standing dispute further. We publicly expressed, including at the highest level, our concerns on this decision at various platforms. We want this to be resolved on the basis of relevant UN resolutions and in line with the interests of all stakeholders. Naturally, such a solution should also meet the legitimate expectations of Kashmiri people. As a member of the OIC contact group for JK, Turkey will continue to support all efforts towards reaching a negotiated settlement. We will continue to advocate for the rights of our Kashmiri sisters and brothers. With that, I would like to express my appreciation for this invitation to Your Excellency.
First of all, I am thankful His Excellency Dr. Majid Javed Saab, your entire team, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of PSATF, Pakistan Southern Africa Trade Federation, it is an honor for us. High Commission gave us an opportunity to express our views for our Kashmiri brothers and sisters. The people of Pakistan have unbreakable historical, cultural, and religious bond with the people of Indian occupied Kashmir. The region of Jammu and Kashmir is indeed, as described by our Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, his visionary statement, the jugular vein of Pakistan. The Jammu and Kashmir dispute is the unfinished agenda of partition. People of Indian occupied Kashmir have never accepted this illegal occupation. All Indian brutalities have failed to deter the people of Indian occupied Kashmir from their rightful cause for freedom from Indian subjugation. The demographic apartheid in occupied Kashmir, under which the Kashmir majority is being turned into a minority, it is a violation of the international law. No amount of Indian sophistry can change the fact that Jammu and Kashmir is a dispute territory and is recognized by such the international community. The realization of Kashmir legitimate and inalienable right of self-determination is indispensable for durable peace and security in South Asia. On behalf of PSATF and all the Pakistani business community in South Africa, we reiterate our commitment to continue to support Kashmir in their struggle for self-determination. The PSATF and Kashmiri brethren, at a very time, they need our support and we will never back down. Ladies and gentlemen, The promotion of trade between South Asia and Africa also required that the Kashmir issue must be resolved as soon as possible to ensure lasting peace in the region. The promotion of trade and industry activities providing employment opportunities to the people of stabilize the economy. Pakistan and India are two of the most important countries in the region. So better relation between them will not only benefit the people of both countries, but will also be tantamount to opening up trade opportunity for the whole of South Asia and the world. We salute the people of India occupied Kashmir for their courage in braving the Indian oppression, and our support will continue till the realization of the cherished dream for freedom of millions of Kashmir people from draconian Indian occupation. Thank you so kind of you.
Thank you, High Commissioner. Thank you, the many other illustrious guests. It is very impressive what a multi-faceted gathering this is, and it shows that the issue is gaining momentum. It is touching many people. Like myself, I'm a professor. I retired, professor of international law at UNISA, and I greet my colleague. So I spent my life dealing with conflict situations in international law. I am in great parts the author of the Mozambican Peace Agreement of 1992, and I was the special advisor for the implementation of that United Nations mission from 92 to 94 in Mozambique to bring about a successful and peaceful election and a transition of the country from civil war to a more or less normal progress and development. But I'm also German, and as a German, I have grown up with a wall. We had a wall just like the separation line in Kashmir. Our wall was just a little bit longer, about 700 kilometers. Yours is about 560 kilometers, if I read correctly. Though both walls are equally cruel and inhumane, except that the Kashmiri wall is much more modern than what was the East German wall. It is double fenced. The fences are between 3 to 4 meters high, and they are full of electronic gadgets and signaling devices. But in between the two fences, the entire soil is landmine. Landmines have been laid. So this has been considered a crime against humanity in the case of the division of West and East Germany, and there should be no reason not to look at this in the same from the same principles. The separation war is a symbol of the cruelty of the division of Kashmir and the occupation of Kashmir and the unresolved conflict. It is not the only conflict of such a nature in the world. Northern Ireland brought about terrible misery for people, and so many other cases that we could name. The most recent maybe being the conflict in the Ukraine, where half the population is Russian speaking and of Russian origin, and the other half is Ukrainian nationalists, who most of them used to fight side by side with Nazi Germany. And this is why the conflict is very bitter within that country. I nevertheless want to end this short idea that the separation of Kashmir should not perpetuate identities of victimhood. With each year that goes by, such identities will render conflict resolution and reconciliation more difficult, as we can witness in Palestine. In the end, it will disempower the people of Kashmir to seek a solution, because being victims of injustice and cruelty and human rights abuses can become an own national identity. The Kashmir Day today, or tomorrow rather, that we are discussing today, should try and alert all all people that love peace and that want to respect human dignity universally, that one must not give up engagement. One must not desist or give up on the international institutions and international law. Thank you. There are still institutions that are powerful, like the World Court. They should maybe be engaged to try and open the minds, especially in India, for the fact that a compromise solution is always possible. India aspires to be a superpower. It is one of the top nations in the world by its strength and size. It should be possible to engage with them in the same manner that the anti-apartheid movement could engage with the majority of people in South Africa, convince them to join the fight against discrimination and win international support. So this is a wonderful moment to see the diversity and that people really from all walks of life, from all professions, from all nationalities have come together, and that this will be happening in so many other countries in the world today and tomorrow. So I wish the Kashmir Solidarity and the Kashmir Freedom Movement from my heart courage and growing and steadily strengthening success. Thank you.
So this issue is not from now, it's past 70 decades. So how we going to solve this problem? Because it's the oldest matter on the UNO, unresolved matter on the UNO at the moment. So I think so there's a best way how we doing, how we got a one voice today. The same way we must take this voice and go to the UNO, and that's how we can solve this problem. And push the UNO, please solve this problem, because this is an unresolved, past 70 decades unresolved problem is by all, and why is not getting solved? Because of India's, they say they are largest democracy in the world. But I think so they got a largest hypocrisy in the world, if I can say that. So if the short notice, with the short words, I will say to that everybody, please let's put a hand together for Kashmir and stand with the Kashmir.
I think I would like to be introduced as a son of soil. I'm born exactly from that land for which you are gathered here to show the solidarity with them, and thank you to each one of you. This will help the people of Kashmir to a great degree, that southern corner of Africa, some people are sitting and are concerned with the basic human rights of Kashmir. It's so ironic and coincident that I'm sitting to the professor sitting next to me from Germany, and he has just discussed about the Berlin Wall. And I have been to Berlin and I saw that wall. And believe me, the wall between the Kashmiris is more than 74 years old. My father, my grandparents used to walk in that land freely, and we can't walk there now anymore. And the relatives, the mother and the sister and the brother and the grandparents are separated from each other for more than 74 years. And each one of you, I think by now in this sitting, you know that India took this matter to the United Nations, and the Kashmir was never a part of India. What was divided, what was the British India, and the Kashmir was not the part of the British India. Now we are suffering for the past 74 years. Before I can say what could be done, I just want to assure you, each one of you, we never had a doubt in any day that we will be slave like this, as India wanted to occupy our land, but our minds are free. Exactly what South Africa has done during the time of apartheid. People's minds were free, and there was local insurgency within the South Africa. Eventually, apartheid was defeated. What I want to say, in particularly with regard to the revocation of Article 370 and 35A. What does it mean to me? It's very similar when South African indigent people were displaced to the other location and they were forced to stay in the homelands. It's the same situation that India had initially given this right in Indian constitution that of the people of state of Jammu and Kashmir are going to have this special right that no Indian can buy any property in Kashmir because Kashmir is a disputed area. But now they did away. And what was the way of removing that Article 370? It should have been actually firstly supported by the legislature of state of Jammu and Kashmir, which never happened. It was the governor rule applied in Kashmir. Delhi appointed a governor there, and then illegally or unconstitutionally, India actually revoked the Article 370 and 35A. What does it mean for us in here? Number one, what's the India's claim in the world stage? That India is a secular country, India is a democratic country, India is a constitutional country. In Kashmir's point of view, India failed in all three merits. India is no more constitutional because this revocation was unconstitutional. India is no more democratic. It is not listening to the 13 million people of Kashmir. And India is not secular anymore because they are suppressing the whatever the voice of the people of Kashmir. So therefore, I think this is a logical reason that India's illegitimate state terrorism should be exposed to the rest of the world, and we should obviously stand by the oppressed and stand against the oppressor.
More of my discussion will be based on the children and women in Kashmir, because I hear we all talk about their human rights, but the part of children and women and the abuse that these children are facing on daily basis, and what comes into the social psychological impact of those children as they grow up in that environment. What are we saying about that as we sit here? Like the previous speaker said, Kashmir is not supposed to be discussed at this type of a forum. It's very small. We have good organizations that could be talking more on what is happening in Kashmir, and us having to come up with a resolution as we sit here, that what is it that we are going to implement to make sure that we are doing a contribution to Kashmir. Talking can be good, but what is the resolution of us as we sit here that we can say, let us try to implement this resolution. Let us write to United Nations to say, United Nations, you are not doing much to help these children and women in this country. Let's contribute more by making an effort of mobilizing to people to say, we fight more on children's labor in this country. We fight on issues of women abuse. So if we do it here, I wouldn't be happy as a woman to say I'm free and I walk free in the streets of South Africa while another woman is being killed while she's expectant. Her body is being cut into two. While a child is forced to be raped, to lose herself at a very early age of her life. Those are the things that we should take into consideration and say, we sit here as people who are invited for tonight, for this celebration, but this is our resolution. This is our stand. We say we are going to ask United Nations, we are going to ask human rights organizations to say, let us put a stop to Kashmir. But putting a stop, what action are we going to put into place? That's my message for today, to say, let us unite and show solidarity by form of action, not by form of talking.
Really encouraging to see so many of our friends expressing their solidarity loud and clear with all the sincerity at their command. Now, we have all seen in the documentary the deteriorating human rights situation that is in the Jammu and Kashmir, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. I would just put the issue of Kashmir, the dispute of Kashmir, in the larger global context. And that is where it can relate to so many different scenarios and countries in the world. Let me recall a personal experience. I was in Berlin, and I have seen that Berlin Wall, and I could relate the Berlin Wall to LOC. I went to the German museums and saw the remains of Nazi oppression for myself, and I could relate to RSS and the current policies in India. Then I came to South Africa, which is perhaps one of the most prototype cases of historically decolonization, the colonization, the decolonization. We say Kashmir dispute is the unfinished agenda of partition. Kashmir dispute is the unfinished agenda of the partition of India, which was the first major chunk of decolonization, a process that then continued till 1990s. But that is, Jammu Kashmir dispute, as we say, is an unfinished agenda of partition, which means it is the unfinished agenda of decolonization. Right. In this documentary, there was a statement by our permanent representative to United Nations, my teacher, and he said that South African experience is similar to that in that of the Kashmir dispute. And the underlying principle for both South Africa's struggle against apartheid and Kashmiri's struggle against Indian occupation, their basic underlying principle is the right of self-determination. The people of South Africa, the majority of them, did not have any control, or they were not in charge of their own destiny, despite the decolonization process have occurred. In Indian illegally occupied Kashmir, the decolonization process, the British left in 1947, but till today they have not been fully decolonized from one colonization, from one oppression. They have just graduated to another oppression, which unfortunately is much worse even than the colonial times. Even than the colonial times. It was very interesting that this right of self-determination is linked to the process of decolonization, and it was only reconfirmed through the United Nations Security Council resolution. That right of self-determination is their fundamental human rights, and nobody in the world can deprive the Kashmiri people of that right. Now, again coming to the South African example. It took many years for the Africans, for the ANC, for Nelson Mandela to garner support against South Africans, against apartheid. The struggle against apartheid, it wasn't completed in one day. It was a long struggle. It was a long, committed struggle, right, together with ANC, to garner support first internally, then externally, globally. And it was only after the major powers, the international community, they withdrew their support for the apartheid regime, that apartheid regime had to allow the South Africans, the native South Africans, the majority of South Africans, the right of self-determination. And that is what right of self-determination is all about. Whatever the majority wants, they must be able to do that. So, Nelson Mandela's and ANC's struggle succeeded once the major powers, the international community, they withdrew their support for the apartheid regime. There was a question that their number of young participants is low over here. Very correct. It's my and your responsibility to bring them here. There was a day then when I didn't know what Kashmir dispute is. Today I know, and now I'm telling others. There was a day when you didn't know about it. Now you are a force behind it, right? It's our responsibility to create that awareness and force and urge the international community, or assure the international community to create the same situation for Kashmir that led to the end of apartheid in South Africa. So, for South Africans, it would be much easier to relate to the Kashmir struggle and how it feels to be deprived of the right of self-determination. As for the UN resolutions, they say that according to the wishes and aspirations of the people of Jammu Kashmir. Very correct. As for the wishes and aspirations of the people of Kashmir, that requires a plebiscite, which we have always been demanding. That plebiscite must be held. But to date, it is not that Kashmiris have not told us what their aspirations are. It is not that they had been sitting and waiting for the plebiscite to tell us what their expectations are. For 70 years, they have been wrapping the dead bodies of their martyrs in Pakistani flags. Right in the face of bullets, under the worst kind of curfews, they have been raising slogans for freedom against occupation. From a small city, Srinagar, which doesn't have much population, it's not a huge metropolitan, there emerges a rally of 300,000 people. What else is an expression of wishes and aspirations of the people of Kashmir? Well, we say, okay, don't look at the Kashmiris wrapping the dead bodies of their martyrs in Pakistan, in Pakistani flags. Don't look at the kind of rallies that they have. Interestingly, there was one, I'll just wind up in 2 minutes, but I would refer to one Kashmiri freedom fighter, Sayyid Ali Gilani. And I was just watching his old videos. And there was one in which he says that Pakistani flag has always been flying in Indian occupied Kashmir. It's nothing new. And he said it will continue to fly in Indian illegally occupied Kashmir. And now his words were, no matter how much it unnerves the Indian government. How much it unnerves the Indian government. But Pakistani flag will continue to fly over here. And then there was a video clip in which severe restrictions in Srinagar and adjoining areas were imposed because of a video of Sayyid Ali Gilani's dead body, the mortal remains, going viral, in which it was wrapped in a Pakistani flag. And then, exactly as he had said, it unnerved the Indian government. It was followed by curfew, it was followed by everything. So, we say, okay, don't look at all it. Give them the right to go to plebiscite, express their views, don't deny them of that right, and that right springs from a larger process of decolonization, a larger history of decolonization, which applies uniformly to all the decolonized world that is today decolonized, and which incidentally comprises majority of the people today living on this planet. So, Kashmir is an unfinished agenda of decolonization. It is an unfinished agenda of partition. The rights that belong to Kashmiri people, they must be given to them. Once again, I thank all my friends and colleagues for very insightful comments and for expressing their solidarity. Thanks for giving us the suggestion that in 2023 we should have a larger solidarity event. We will need your support. Thank you so much.
India has illegally occupied Kashmir. I say illegally because United Nations resolutions state that the people of Kashmir must be given the freedom to choose their own rule and their own independence. But India has forcefully occupied Kashmir, which is not their land, and imposed its army upon the innocent people of Kashmir. I therefore directly instruct the BJP government, the Modi government, to remove all military forces from Indian occupied Kashmir, re-establish complete normal civilian life, release all political prisoners because they are actually liberation fighters, stop the rape of women and girls in Kashmir, and re-establish all communication channels that are available so that the people of Kashmir may be able to communicate with themselves and internationally on a free basis. You may have recently heard that Israel was declared an apartheid state. That was because of the discrimination and the willful removal, forced removal and imposition of Israeli rule on Palestinian people. And a similar copycat situation exists in India, where there is discrimination and punishment to the Kashmiri people. And therefore, I appeal to the international community as well as all human rights loving organizations to declare India also officially as an apartheid state.
My name is Sharon Sipe. Today I'll be talking more about unity of people who are within human rights organizations to assist the people of Kashmir. There's a lot of allegations and a lot of things that are happening in Kashmir. In Kashmir, the women are being raped. There's a lot of mass killings. There's forced disappearance of people. There's a lot of torture. Children are suppressed for their freedom. There's no freedom of speech, and there are no also religious gatherings in Kashmir. We therefore appeal that the United Nations must come in and assist the people of Kashmir, so that the people of Kashmir should live in freedom, must know what is expected of them in the real life. Children must learn to go to school. Children must have what is due to them. The amount of rape that is happening to women in Kashmir should also go down. I'm only appealing to human rights organizations to say, let us put a helping hand. If we can together join our hands and work together, the people of Kashmir will be free.
South Africans know only too well the effects of colonialism, occupation, and the brutality of an apartheid system. We have not forgotten our brothers and sisters in Jammu and Kashmir, who also have had 60 and 70 years of a brutal and oppressive occupation. We have not forgotten the struggle for freedom for Muslims all over the world who are similarly suffering under either occupation or tyrannical regimes. We express our solidarity with the people of Jammu and Kashmir, that we will do our part to try and raise awareness about what is happening in occupied Kashmir, to raise international pressure, to force India to come to the table to find a just settlement and to withdraw its troops and its administration of Kashmir. Kashmir was promised, the people of Kashmir were promised to have an election, to have a referendum where they choose what they would like for their country. And the international community must honor this agreement. We know at the moment how the occupation has increased, how the brutality of the occupation has increased, and we will do our best to ensure that our country and other parts of the world raise awareness in the media, in government, in the United Nations, so that the people of Kashmir and their struggle for freedom is not forgotten.
I am Christopher Isike, Professor of African Politics and International Relations at the University of Pretoria in South Africa. I am also the current president of the African Association of Political Science. However, it is in my personal capacity as an Africanist scholar who values human freedoms and rights to self-determination that I join the call to solidarize with the people of Kashmir in their legitimate quest for freedom from all forms of domination. The people of Kashmir reserve the right to determine their own destiny. They have the right to determine their pathway to progress and development as defined by them. This right is enshrined in international law and several UN resolutions such as Resolution 1514 of 1960 and UN General Assembly Resolution 47/82 of 1992, as well as more specific UN resolutions on the case of Jammu and Kashmir. I therefore call on all stakeholders to respect the rights to freedom and self-determination by the people of Kashmir.
The people of Jammu and Kashmir, living under Indian occupation, demand their right to self-determination, which has been confirmed by the United Nations organization, the UN. However, India continues to deny this right since 1947. During the decades-long Indian occupation, hundreds of Kashmiri youths have been killed or have been abducted. Women have been raped. Houses have been burnt. All as collective punishments to the people who do not want to live under Indian rule. India has even embraced a policy of ethnic cleansing against the Kashmiri Muslims, quite similar to the Israeli tactics in Palestine. The situation today is an unfolding tragedy which requires international humanitarian intervention. India's massive political, economic and diplomatic resources are hindering a constructive international engagement. But without international pressure, India will not change its Kashmir policy. The people of South Africa, who gained independence after a prolonged struggle, made a very similar experience. The lessons to be learned are that international support and expression of solidarity towards the South African struggling activists played a very important role in bringing down the apartheid regime and an end to racial discrimination. International support and intervention is crucial to the Kashmir. The day of 5th February is observed as Kashmir Solidarity Day, which is an occasion to express support for the Kashmir freedom movement. All peace and justice loving people in this world stand by the people of Kashmir and must help to save them from oppression.
I would like to send my solidarity and warm greetings to the people of Kashmir on this occasion of the Day of Solidarity with the Kashmiri people. As South Africans, we have always supported the right of all people around the world to be able to decide their political future for themselves. Similarly, we support the right of Kashmiris to be able to decide their own political future. The Kashmiri people have been under brutal military occupation for more than 70 years, and were promised a referendum by the United Nations and are due this referendum under international law. As South Africans and as the South African Friends of Kashmir, we wish to assure our Kashmiri friends that we support you in your struggle for self-determination and emancipation towards a free Kashmir. We send you love and greetings and solidarity on this important occasion, and we wish to remind you that all oppressive regimes will ultimately fall. So you will see
your freedom very soon.
People of the Indian-occupied Kashmir have been struggling for their independence and their right to self-determination since 1947. It's like over 74 years now. And yet they have failed to gain the attention of the world community towards their plight. Now everyone knows what's going on in the Indian-occupied Kashmir. The heinous crimes and atrocities committed against the civilians there is well documented. The question I think we need to ask today as we observe the Kashmir International Solidarity Day is this. The question is, why or how come the United Nations and all the member states can support South Sudan to gain its independence in 2011, East Timor, Montenegro, Palau, a little island, all of them gained their independence supported by the world community. So why the double standards? Why can't a people over 15 million population gain their rights to self-determination? Are they lesser humans? Isn't this a question we need to ask? Well, I say, the time for talking is over. Enough is enough. The time has arrived to up the ante. The time has arrived for the United Nations, all freedom-loving people of the world, to put the Modi-led BJP fascist regime in India, put them on notice. If the United Nations is failing to do what it needs to do, what possible excuse does the African Union have? We know we are still living here in Africa with the legacy of colonialism. What possible excuse does the Arab League have and the OIC group of countries have? They must impose, and I'm calling on them to impose social and economic sanctions against the Modi-led Hindutva-inspired fascist regime.
The use of brutal military force on innocent and oppressed civilians is of genuine concern to all of us. The DA has consistently spoken out against human rights abuses in Kashmir and other regions, and especially in this instance by the Indian Armed Forces. We have called on the UN to negotiate a settlement that could and must lead to more enforceable peace and stability for all parties in the region, including the respect of international law, which grants the people of Kashmir their right to self-determination. We continue to call for peace and the respect of the rule of law by everyone. With this short message, I end as I started with the greetings of peace and pray that this will be achieved soon.
Express solidarity, what the people of Kashmir can do for you. It is very important that you document all of the crimes that is happening in your territories and to your people. It is important to document these crimes and to record them, to publicize them, and to publicize the names of those people who are committing those crimes. Those generals in the armies, those leaders in the government who support and condone these war crimes, document them so that we can use the evidence that you gather and utilize universal jurisdictional laws to bring the culprits to account and to book. Remember, universal jurisdiction laws, which seeks to prosecute war crimes and crimes against humanity, condemn these crimes and allow for universal jurisdiction on the basis that these crimes that is happening in your territories are regarded as crimes against the entire humanity. So no matter where these war criminals travel to and no matter where they go, if there is evidence that is documented against them, lawyers all around the world can utilize such evidence to bring these perpetrators to justice.
The people of Indian-occupied Kashmir are demanding their rights for self-determination, which has been granted to them by the United Nations. However, India continues to deny this right by forcibly occupying the state of Jammu and Kashmir since 1947. During the decades-long illegal occupation of Kashmir by India, hundreds of Kashmiri youths have been killed or abducted, women raped, and houses have been burnt as collective punishments to the people who do not want to stay with India. By brazenly trampling internationally accepted political rights of Kashmir, India is continuing with the shameful act of ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Muslims through planned genocide and land grab quite similar to Israel's tactics in Palestine. The situation in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a continuously unfolding tragedy which requires immediate international response. Since India has massive political, economic, and diplomatic stature, and it is therefore obvious that till the time world community does not exert its pressure, India won't change its behavior to Kashmir. Nobody knows it better than the people of South Africa who gained independence after a prolonged struggle, but what is relevant here to note is the fact that the international support and expression of solidarity towards the apartheid regime, towards the stagnant South Africans played a very important role in bringing down the apartheid regime and the ultimate end to discrimination. South African example shines light on the fact that international support and intervention is also crucial in Kashmir. The day of 4th February is observed as Kashmir Solidarity Day, which is an occasion to express support for the Kashmir freedom movement. Therefore, it is very important that all justice-loving forces in the world stand by the people of Kashmir and save them from exploitations of as powerful a regime as India.
On the occasion of the Kashmiri Solidarity Day, 5th February, my sentiments and that of many, many South Africans to the human rights of the people of Kashmir. The situation in Kashmir has been a tragedy of our times. It is a travesty that, in this day and age, when the rights of self-determination are universally recognized and innocent people should be refused that right, through no fault of their own, it is not proper, right and just that the Kashmiris be entitled to decide their own future? Is that asking for too much? This tragedy has gone on for too long, and it is high time that the Kashmiris be permitted by plebiscite. Look at the South African context. After 100 years of oppression, South Africa found its freedom, where it was left to the people to decide how they wanted to live. Is the South African experience not a lesson for the world in terms of the right to self-determination? I call on people of the world to stand up and say no more. It is a fundamental right of self-rule. Kashmiri will never be forgotten. Kashmiri is not alone. Thank you so much.